pyramid generator project. So it should look like this. So you give a count. So you have a character. You can make any symbol you want. It could be zeros. It could be it'll be all zeros or any symbol you want. The count is the count of how many rows you want. So this should have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. The rows is an array in which every row will be stored in. So every row would be um, an element in that array. So here if you want to console.log rows, you see every element is a row. And inverted is not part of the main implementation, but I'll explain it later. So we have the first function, which is pad row. That will take two parameters, the row number and the row count. So this will return spaces that are repeated row count minus row number amount. So if you have, let's say, a row count of 10, which is here, row count of count, which is 10, and then rows dot length plus 1. So first the rows start with the length of 0, plus 1 will be 1, so it will be 10 minus 1, which is 9. So we'll have 10 spaces plus the character that repeats. So we'll repeat this amount of times. So for the first one, you have 2 times row number, which is 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1. And then it will do the same thing, repeat again. So it'll be 9 spaces, 1 character, 9 spaces, until you get to the end, which you'll have 10, 10 the row number would be 10 minus 10, which is the row count, which would equal 0, and then you have 2 times 10, which is 20, minus 1, 19. So if we check here, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So you see the bottom one has 19 characters. So this function is used here. So we have a while loop, which will check as long as the rows that length, so the length of the rows array is less than the count. So as long as it's less than 10, it will keep running. So what we'll do is push this into the rows array, which is this function that we did. So each time we go through it, we'll do the first one, which will be just one character. We'll push it to the rows, and then we'll do two. We'll do 3, then 5, then 7, and it just keeps going until it reaches 10. And they're stored in the result, which is an empty string. And this for loop will act like a const row of rows. Will act like a row would act like an element in the one element in the array. And then it will still store the result based on the older result plus this, which would put you in the next line, and then add a row, which is the element that we're on right now. Another way you can do this is by using this for loop, which you declare I, and as long as I is less than the row's array length, then you keep incrementing I. And here you store the result. You store the old result plus a new line plus the row's index at that point, and then it'll keep incrementing the index, which is I. And just to make sure this works, we can save it, check, and it works the same. So if you want to invert the pyramid, we can use this. So see how it inverts it if I comment this out. So what it's doing is instead of incrementing, it's starting the I at 10, which is the count, and then it will stop when I is 0. So as long as I is not 0, it'll keep going, and it'll just decrement I. And what it will do is just we'll push the whatever this function gives out, we'll push it to the start. So we'll start with 10, and the count of 10, which will produce 19 characters. It'll push it to the start, and we'll keep going until it hits 1, then it will stop. And the last way, which is very similar to the rest, but it's just using the unshift. So this is still inverted because we have here inverted is true. So we'll check. We have the same for loop. And here's inverted is true, which will, if inverted is true, it will do this. If not, it will not be inverted. But we'll show, I'll just explain this. This is very similar, basically the same thing as here. So what unshift does is that it will unshift here it says right here, it will insert a new element at the start of an array and returns the length of the new array.